Okay, hello everyone. It's my honor to start this series of classes of my father's wisdom. My father, Rabbi Noach Weinberg, blessed of memory. Um, by introducing him, his way of thinking, his way of living, just to share with you a background. I think that this is the best way to prepare ourselves to understand more what he's teaching, understand more what's the thinking behind it. And I think then we could enjoy much more the wisdom that you're going to learn with all the rabbis, Bezat Hashem. So I'm going to start, I like to say I start from the beginning. Where does Eish Torah start? My father, blessed memory, was involved in many projects, but obviously, Eish Torah was the biggest project of his life. He dedicated his life for this mission. And to try to understand where does Eish Torah come, where does it start, why does my father start this thing that's called Eish Torah? So let's start from the beginning. My father is a nice Jewish boy living in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. I actually was there a few months ago. If you remember when there was such a thing to travel around the world when airplanes were still flying in the air. And nice Jewish neighborhood. I understand that many Jews used to live there, Lower East Side Manhattan. My father grew up in a very religious family. Many people think that my father grew up in a non-religious family and he himself reconnected to Judaism, so that's why he dedicated his life for this. But that's not my father's path. My father grew up in a very religious family, very strong family. One of his brothers was a big Rosh Hashiva, but the whole family was very well educated. And my father was the youngest in his family. And my grandfather passes away when my father is pretty young, when my father was, I think, around 13, 14 years old. And my father continues to grow up with his mother, a widow mother. And in the summers, like everybody knows in America, in the summers, you go up to the mountains, you go out to camp, you do some activities that's pretty expensive. My father felt that when he was a little bit older, when he was 19, 20, he felt, responsible that his mother worked so hard for the money and he didn't want, just to spend the money. So he said he went out to work. He went out to work in the summers and he had a very life-changing experience. And what was that? He said he would travel. He literally traveled around America in many places. He was traveling. And he said that wherever he went, and when I say traveling, I think he even said that he got to Texas. Like he would literally drive a few days, try to make business, to do something. And he said that wherever he went, he met Jewish people. And it was beautiful to see, people were so, he said that when he met the Jewish people, people were so excited. And so he really felt something in the air. People was proud about being Jewish, literally proud about being Jewish. And this is a line that we could speak about. What does it mean? But he felt, as he said, that people is proud about being Jewish. And out of curiosity, he would ask them, he says, tell me, what makes you so proud about being Jewish? What is it? Why are you proud about being Jewish? And he would ask many people this question. And he realized that yes, people love Judaism. Yes, people want their children to be connected to Judaism. Yes, people want, they love Israel. They want some kind of a connection, but they don't know enough about it. They don't know enough about it. And at that point, he realizes that even though we want something and we want our children to continue something, if we don't know enough about it, the chances that they're going to continue and grow in it is low. It's not zero, but it's low. And that's when he started to worry about the Jewish people in America. He said people love Judaism, people's proud, literally proud about being Jewish, but they don't know enough about it. His calculation was that one generation down, 2 generations down, we, God forbid, going to lose our own brothers and sisters because they are going to disconnect of Judaism. They're not going to remember that they're Jewish. They're not going to know what does it mean to be Jewish. And at that age, at that young age, he felt that this is our responsibility. He felt it. He said, I can't just look aside and say, okay, it is what it is life. And he really tried. What he would do, he would come back, and I call it the circle of responsibility. He would come back to his rabbis, his teachers, and he would tell them, there's so many Jews around America. They love Judaism, they're happy to be Jewish, but they don't know enough about it. He says we have to do something to give them a chance. And the answer that people always used to tell him, if it's the rabbis, if it's the people they would speak to, they would tell him, forget about it. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Each one has his life. Each one has his, each one is struggling with his life. And it's not, don't waste your time on it, they used to tell him. But for my father, this is family. This is family. He would say like this, if you hear someone that's not feeling good in the hospital, you feel bad. You say, okay, how could I help? And you try to help. If you're a nice guy, of course. But if you know that it's your family, it's your brother, it's your sister, it's not just to say, okay, let me be nice and just say, a nice word. You go, you act, you try to find something. So my father would go, and he would go from rabbi to rabbi, and people would tell him, forget about it. And as my father would say, he realized that the situation is that it's a one-way street. People would just leave Judaism, that there's no one reaching out, there's no one giving them at least the chance to reconnect, to know about Judaism. And when he realized that no one is not going to do it, he said, and of course this is something that he learned from his house, responsibility was engraved in their lives. His father always used to tell him this line, that when you don't see anyone doing something about it, you should try at least. And he said, I figured out I have to try to do something about this. I think this is the number one important thing, that my father's life was built around responsibility. One of the things that my father said that inspired him in his life, or encouraged him in his life, was actually his sister. My father had a sister, special sister. Her name was Chava Pinkus. Aunt Chava, we used to call her. Aunt Chava was an amazing woman. The beautiful family, the tremendous help that she gave for the Jewish people, the responsibility. They went out and opened places that wasn't no Judaism. They went out and they dedicated their life to help others to connect to Judaism. She and her husband and her family. She had a special son. The name was Rabbi Shimshon Pinkus. He was a great rabbi in a city in Israel, of Hakim. But this Aunt Chava had a very interesting story also when she grew up. My grandfather, sent her to learn in Poland by Sarah Schneerel, the founder of the Beis Yaakov movement, the founder of the biggest school movement in the world. And that was just the beginning when Sarah Schneerel started to open a school in Poland. My grandfather took my aunt. I don't know if there's many people that flew from a city to city to learn by Sarah Schneerel, but I'm sure that's very rare from America. But my grandfather sent my aunt and he told her go to Sarah Schneerel and learn by her. And he gave her an envelope and he said, don't open it until when you get to Sarah Schneerel. She comes to Sarah Schneerel, she opens up the envelope, and my grandfather writes to this teacher, this great teacher, Sarah Schneerel. He tells her, I'm sending my daughter to learn by you. I'm asking you one important thing. Please make her twice as big than you. And he continues and he writes, and if you ask what kind of nerve, what kind of chutzpah do I have to ask such thing from you? He says, I will explain you. He says, the prophet Elijah, before he goes up to heaven, he turns to his right-hand guy and he says, what could I bless you? And his right-hand guy tells him, make me twice as big than you. Because you are going up now, but I have a world that I still have to face. The next generation, the false prophets that was at that time, he says, I have a work to do. You have to make me twice as big than you. So my grandfather tells this big lady, Sarah Schneerel, he tells her, my daughter has to come back to America. And she has to open a Beis Yaakov. And she has to open a woman movement. She has to face a bigger challenge than you. She has to be twice as big than you. So this is, just for the understanding what a great house that they grew up in. A house of responsibility. A house of responsibility that you don't just look now, what do I need? You look another 10 years, another 20 years, another 100 years. How our lives look, how our children's life look, and how our generations to come will look. It's not just about me, it's about looking into the future. So this was the house of responsibility that my father grew up. And when my father sees that there's so many people that they love Judaism and they deserve someone to give them a chance, they deserve someone to teach them, to educate them, he's going to pick up the task and he's going to do something about it. But what do you do? What do you do? I mean, if you see someone going on the street and you need to help him, okay, so you could help him. But if you see something major happening, thousands of people that need help, thousands of people that needs guiding, thousands of people that need love. How will you do it? One person, how will you do it? And my father struggled with this question. He says, okay, so what should I do? I see the problem, I care about it, everything is in place, but what do I do about it? So we're divided to two parts. One is the technical side, and one is the mindset and the teaching side. So we'll go first for the simple. It's not so simple, but it's a simple side, and that's a technical way. My father started searching in many different organizations in the world that's considered organization that changes lives or changes views of people. For example, Greenpeace, to raise awareness, save the whale. People with their own ideas, but the concept is that they manage to do a movement, they manage to cause people to care about something. And he learned about it. And he realized that now he has the direction. He says for us to get to everyone and to give them a chance, we have to build an organization. We have to build people that's going to be responsible, not just for themselves, not just for their families, but they're going to be responsible to teach other people to be responsible, to teach other people to be responsible. And that's what he created. He created an organization. The idea was that he felt that people will come and learn, and we're going to turn them into leaders. He says that's the best way, first of all, that a person could really grow in his life when he takes a responsibility. And second of all, we need leaders. We need people to fight for the Jewish people. That's what he created in Jerusalem. So many people know that it's called a Torah, it's called a yeshiva. My father used to call it an organization. But more specifically, he would call it a leadership program. The concept is to build leaders, to build people that's going to take responsibility. But now let's go back to the idea, because we get the technical side. You see a problem, you go ahead, you convince people that the problem is a problem and they should do something about it, and they should encourage other people to do something about it, and they should encourage other people, and please God, that's how we're going to solve it. But what do we really do? What did my father really do? Because this is the bigger challenge. Going back to this question, that my father says that he sees that people love Judaism, they care for Judaism, they want to be part of it, they want their children to be part of it. But he says that's not enough. What's going to be the next generation, or the 2 generations down, or even 10 generations down? And also, this is a very essential question. What makes us proud about being Jewish? This is a question that I grew up with. My father would encourage us to ask this question to ourselves. What makes you so proud about being Jewish? Why? Because there's a very important secret that could give you a view for life. In the way that my father would present it many, many times, even for students that would come in for the first time, he would ask him this idea in different words. And he would say like this. He says, we the Jewish people, we survived 2,000 years in exile. That's the most important word, in exile. We had no home, we had no protection. We were spread out in many different places in the world. People would spit on us, step on us, kill us just because we was Jews. What gave the Jewish people the power to hold on? Why didn't we just give up? There's so many nations that existed and don't exist anymore. And they didn't exist in their own land. In their own homeland, they didn't exist. In exile, you come to a place, you're trying to survive, you keep up with your tradition, you keep up with your lifestyle. How do you do that? What gives you the power to hold on? And really, a real story that someone came in one day and, speaking to him about the mission of Eish Torah, about the concept and what we do. He was a donor, tried to get from a donation. And he tells me something very interesting, like he cuts me in the middle of my words and he says, I give money for many, many organizations. I give money. I even give money to this group that's called Toldos Aaron. That's the extreme of the extreme in Jerusalem. I'm very happy to hear it. Sure. You give money, you give tzedakah, that's great. I have a feeling that he wants to tell me something. And quite frankly, I can't say that I don't go and don't visit, these people, or I'm afraid to go there. I can't say that. But as we say, I don't know if I have, so much opportunities to react with those people. And I'm looking at him, and mind you, I think, for sure he put on the kippah, the yarmulke on his head just for when we met. And I was really wondering, who made a connection between him and them. I mean, it's great. It's just curiosity. I also felt that he's trying to tell me something. And as we say, I'm going with him. And I asked him, I told him, tell me, who made a connection between you? Who made this, who connected between you guys? How did you meet them? Like, did they come to you? Did they come to America? Did you came to them? Like, how did it work? And he tells me something very frightening. He said, one day I was sitting in my house in Deal. It says a quiet moment where a very deep thought came into my mind. He said, I made a calculation that in 200 years from now, me and you, he tells me, we're not going to exist anymore. He says, it's not that I'm thinking that maybe one day will be a pill that we could, take and we could live more than 120 years. He says, I'm not that direction I'm going. He says, I'm talking about my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. I feel the generations is going down and down. He says, my calculation in 200 years from now, we're going to lose these people. We're going to lose our families. It's just not going to exist. People's not going to get married. People's not going to have children. People's going to disconnect from Judaism. The numbers of Jews is going to go down very greatly. So he said, you know what? I thought, who might survive? He says, I'm not sure, but it might be that they're going to survive. He said, I thought that maybe those guys, because they're in the very, very extreme and they're living in a bubble, maybe those guys, maybe they're going to survive. So he said, I made an effort, I contact them, I give them money because I want, to make sure that my donation will be maybe for a longer time existing. He's talking about 200 years. Is he out of his mind? No. He has a real reason to worry. Let's go back to my father's question. 2,000 years we survived in exile? What gave us the power? How are we still here? How is our grandparents still, connected to Judaism? How are we connected to Judaism? Why didn't we just disappear? There's many answers. The main answer that my father would say, and I, from my experience, when I ask people what they think about it, and I encourage you also to think about it, there's many reasons for it. But my father would put together all the reasons into 2 words. And the 2 words goes like this. We, the Jewish people, we have Torah Chaim. We have the wisdom for life. This is what we have. And this is what gave the people the power to hold on for so many generations. Torah Chaim means I understand what I'm living for. I understand every moment of my life. I understand who I am, where am I going, and what am I supposed to do. I get up in the morning, I know to say thank you. I wash my hand, I eat, I know who I am as a human being. This is so powerful. And this, in my father's eyes, gave the Jewish people the power to hold on for so many generations. Because when you have knowledge, it doesn't matter where you are. You are yourself. When you don't have knowledge, then you're just part of society. It's like a doctor. You take a doctor, and wherever he's going to go in the world, if he sees someone unconscious and he has his tools, he could help them. Doesn't matter where is he in the world. He is a doctor, he knows his mission, he knows his job. If we know who we are, then we could stay strong. This is the main message that my father put into his life. This is the main realization that my father understood. We have wisdom for life. We have instructions for life. He would say life is so beautiful. And it is so beautiful. We love living life. But life could be so miserable if we don't know what is life. Are we going to work to live, or are we living to work? Are we eating to live, or are living to eat? This was his questions that he would make us think. Because one thing was very clear for him, and he would say it again and again. God is our Father. And what does a father want for his children? What do you want for your children? What does your parents want for you? Do they want to make for you rules? Do they want to make you work for them? Or your parents want to have you have the best time of your life? Obviously, to have the best time of your life, you have to work for it. You can't just sit down and they're going to encourage you and they're going to push you. But they want you to have the best time of your life. God, the creator of the universe, created us for one thing. He created us to have pleasure. He is our Father. We turn to him as a Father. He wants us to have the best life in our lives, the best time in our lives. He created all the laws and all the instructions for us to really enjoy our lives. Because one thing was very clear. My father would point this out so many times. I know that they say that JF Kennedy, I think, they said this line, ask not what your country could do for you, ask what you could do for your country. My father would say, ask not what you could do for your creator. Rather ask, what do you allow your creator to do for you? What does it mean? The picture was so clear for him. God does not need anything from human beings. And by the way, my father would have a $100 bill, and he would encourage people, send to me an atheist, I give you $100. One of the reasons was because he used to love to ask this question when he would meet an atheist. And he would say, you an atheist, you don't believe in God, you're an outsider. So, you could be objective because, it's not, you're not connected to it. I have for you a question. If it would be such a thing of God, that he created us, he created the universe, he created everything. He's moving my fingers right now. Literally, he's moving my fingers. My fingers is not moving because I'm moving it. It's because he's moving it. According to my life view, that's how we would ask the atheist. He created the universe, he created the stars, he created the moons, he created space. If it would be such a thing in God, he gives us life, he gives us money, he gives us everything. If there's such a thing in God, is there anything that a human being could give God that God could not afford for himself? He said, all of the atheists, they would ask this question, they would burst down laughing. They said, Rabbi, we don't believe with all this stuff. But if there would be such a thing, a God, a creator, that did all of this, there's nothing that you could give God. There's nothing that a human being could give God. This is a very important thing that we have to remember in our lives. God does not need nothing from us. He gave us a present. The present is called wisdom for life. This is the thing that kept us alive all the years. And this is the thing that's going to keep us alive for today. And now my father's putting one and one together. And he says, okay, so people don't know about Judaism. They want to be part of the Jewish people. They want the children to be part of the Jewish people, but they don't know enough about it. So what are we going to do? Where do we start? His answer was, we're going to start from wisdom for life. If you learn about life, you're going to enjoy your life. That's our first goal. Enjoy your life. Literally, you would tell people, you're an atheist. People would say, I'm an atheist. I do this, I do that. You could be you could do whatever you do. But can you be a happy atheist? Can you be a loving atheist? Let's learn how to be happy. Let's learn what is love. Is love just an happening, or is love something that we create? Do you have free will? When do you use your free will? So much wisdom that it's for us, it's for our lives. The greatest pain, you would say, for a person is when a person doesn't know who he is. The greatest pleasure that person could have is when he knows who he is. When he knows what's going on inside. One day upset, one day angry, one day happy, one day, enthusiastic, and one day, forget it all. And this is what my father feels and knows, that this is going to give us the strength. And this is how we could give other people the opportunity to connect to Judaism. Learn about yourself, learn life, learn wisdom. You're only going to gain from it. And that's how we create this organization. He said, I have to teach them. But how am I going to do it? How am I going to do it? By understanding. By me stopping and understanding what is life. What am I saying? What am I doing? What's encouraging me? What's holding me back? Understanding. Taking the God-given wisdom and bringing it into life. Many people, when they hear the name Esha Torah, they tell me, what is it? Is the fire of the Bible? What's Esha Torah? How do you translate the word the Esha Torah? And I tell them that the way that my father would translate it is, he would translate it, the power of wisdom. Esh is fire, but fire stands for power. Torah could be the Bible, but Torah is mostly information, it's instructions. The word Torah himself, even though we use it for the Bible, for the Torah, that's the way that we use it mostly, but in Hebrew, Torah has many other ways to use it. You could say Torah Nehigah, that's driving instructions. There's Torah Lechima, that's fighting instructions. Torah himself is not the word that really makes the impact. What makes a difference is what comes with it. Our Torah is called Torah Chaim. Esha Torah the translation of Eshet Torah is the power of wisdom. My father said, and my father dedicated his life for this thing. Let's learn wisdom. Let's teach wisdom. I remember I went with my father to the doctor. Unfortunately, when he was diagnosed, and we came to America and we went to meet a few doctors, and he was by this Indian doctor, or I think it was a Christian, I don't remember, like not a Jewish person, and he was asking him, he says, tell me, what do you do for a living? He says, I teach wisdom. That was his way. That what he considered for himself is living. He teaches wisdom. So let's try to understand a little bit more, what does it mean? And how do we do it? So one of the ways I like to explain it is, by the way, like this. One of the famous stories that I heard of my father, about my father, after he passed away, and actually even my father was telling us this story even when he was alive, is the following. So, my father sees the problems, he tries to convince the rabbis doesn't do nothing about it, he travels to Israel, he wants to convince a very big rabbi in Israel. Unfortunately, that rabbi passes away. My father realizes he has to do something. But in the meantime, he came to Israel, he stayed to learn in Israel. And, he was for a period of time in Israel. By the way, he said that was his decision. That's when he made the decision to come live in Israel. And I encourage everyone to come and live in Israel. It's a different subject, of course, but my father was a real Zionist, a real loving Israel, a real loving the land. But anyway, my father stayed to learn in Jerusalem. He learned in the yeshiva, a great yeshiva in Mir for a period of time. So my father said that before he opened Eshet Torah, before he started to open a yeshiva, he came to his Rosh Yeshiva to get his blessing. It's natural. It's also part of the halacha that says that, if you want to open an institution right next to someone else that has, that you learned in the same institution, so it's called derech eretz. It's the right way to come and ask your rabbi permission to get his blessing. So my father comes to his rabbi and he tells him, I want to open this organization. I see a problem. I see people don't know about Judaism enough. And, I feel that I could build an organization. I have to build leaders and he has a whole plan. He tells his rabbi, I'm sure he gave him, good details and good supporting for it. And the story goes like this. His rabbi listens in and he tells them in Yiddish. He tells them in these words. He tells them, Ich verstehe, was du willst machen. I get it. Okay, I thought about it. I get it. He says, Du willst machen a Fabrik. What you're trying to do is a factory. Okay? Meaning you're going to take a person from one side, push him into the machine, take him out from the other side. Oh my gosh, you created a new person. He literally told him in these words, Du bist Michiganer geworden. You off your mind. So my father looks on his Rabbi and he says, Rabbi, it's written, it's written that the Jewish people, is thirsty for meaning, is thirsty for understanding. See, someone that's thirsty, you give him to drink, you give him a chance, he's not going to go with you. So Rabbi looks on him and says, you know what, if you believe so, I give you my blessing. And he gives him his blessing, and my father opens Eshet Torah. Now, this is a story that even my father would tell. The reason that he would tell it is because literally when my father started Eshet Torah, when he started the organizations that he started, people would call him the crazy man. Literally, they would call him the crazy man. I remember growing up in my neighborhood, there wasn't, an extreme neighborhood, it was very mainstream, but all these people coming into our house, and mind you, that was in the 60s and the 80s. People would look like, Very interesting, if I could just say it in a simple way. My friends would look at me and would say, you guys, off your mind. What are you doing with all these weird people in your house? Never saw such a thing. It never existed. So my father would say this story because he wanted to tell people, don't give up. You have a good idea, go with it, even so they call you crazy. And this rabbi called him crazy, and he continued, and thank God he managed to do so great. And that's why after my father passed away, also people used to speak about the story. It shows how amazing he was. And he really was amazing in this part. But for me, the story bothered. After I heard it many times, the story bothered me. Why did it bother me? Because I say like this, my father came to his rabbi. It's like, take any example. If you have a great rabbi that you trust, if you have a great doctor that you trust, if you have a great professor that you trust, in different aspects of life. Let's say you have an idea in science, you have an idea in medicine. You come to the professor, and you tell him, Professor, here I have this and this idea. And he listens in. This is a serious process. He listens in, and he turns to you and you say, I heard what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. My friend, you off your mind. What do you do at that point? You walk away, no? You say, okay, let me go check myself. Maybe I'm really off my mind. If you have enough courage, you really, really check yourself. You come back to your teacher, your professor, your rabbi, and you say, look, you said I'm off my mind. Please explain me. I checked myself out. This is the reasons I say yes. This is the reasons, that I felt that I have a good idea. Please explain me. I want to learn from it. But the story doesn't go like that. My father comes to his rabbi tells him, you off your mind. My father doesn't walk out. Doesn't take a time to think about it. And not just that, he tries to convince his rabbi. So you would think, if he's trying to convince him, maybe he pulls off, some kind of explanation that his rabbi never heard, or maybe, this source, that source, different things that maybe his rabbi never heard about this. But what does he tell him? He tells him people is thirsty. Oh my God. Never heard about this? It's the first time I heard about it, you think? Why are you trying to convince me with this line? And guess what? He convinced him. He got his blessing. So, of course, my father's not here to ask him, the question, but I listen, I could say, thank God, to thousands of my father's classes. I mean, my father didn't leave for us any money, he didn't leave for us any assets, but he left for us a very big blessing. For me, at least, personally. Classes of his that I literally listen to it day by day. If it's about life, if it's about the holiday, if it's about anything that I want, I dig into his classes and it's just a blessing. It's just a gift. And this is what my father left for us. So I listen to many of his classes and I feel that altogether, knowing my father and listening to his classes, this is how I explain this story. And I think that this gives clarity about what happened there. And I say like this, let's go back to the story. The father comes to his rabbi and he says, Rabbi, I want to open an institution. I want to open an organization. I see the problem. I want to encourage people to take responsibility. That's great. That's amazing. I believe that his rabbi agreed with him 100,000%. He gave him all the blessing in the world. But the rabbi took one step forward and he said, Noach, he says, tell me, how are you going to do this? How are you going to do this? It sounds like that you want to try and change people. He says, I just want to make sure you remember The people are not machines. You can't take people from one side and put them in and take them out from the other side as different people. It doesn't work. He says you're going to go out of your mind. You're going to try to change people. They're not going to change. You're going to go out of your mind. How are you going to do it? So what does my father answer as Rabbi? He says, Rabbi, you're 100% right. But what's the example? The example is someone's thirsty. You give someone that he's thirsty, you give him to drink, he's never going to drink. The answer is yes, he's going to drink. So what? But let's think about it a little bit deep, and we'll see what my father answers, because this represents very much my father's way of thinking. And I changed the words, of course, because this is not the conversation that's going on, but this is how I explain it. My father tells his rabbi, he says, look, someone that's thirsty, yeah? Let's say he got stuck in the desert and he really pushes himself to the edge, and finally he gets to the first house. And he's really, really thirsty. I believe that today in Western society, we don't really know what's really thirsty. We don't drink an hour, we don't drink a day. We feel like we're thirsty, but believe me, there's people that in worse situations. I always say this joke that, when is the kids the most thirsty along the day? As you put them into bed, as they put down the head on the pillow, something happens there that they become so thirsty that they could cry for 2 hours or 3 hours straight. I'm thirsty, right? Even so, he just drank, 20 gallons of water. So I'm not talking about that thirsty, because we know that that's more for tension and a reason to go out of bed, etc. But someone that's really thirsty, let's imagine someone that's really, really thirsty. He knocks on the first house and he says, I need to drink. I really need to drink. Please help me out. Now I say there's two options. One option is that the owner of the house takes the drink and he smacks it into his face, like smack. And says, come over, just drink. That's option A. Option B is that the owner of the house opens the door and says, sure, please come in. He puts him down, next to the table. He brings in front of him, some drinks, some cake, some fruit. And he says, have a drink. The fact is that in both situations, this guy is going to drink. In both situations, this guy is going to drink because he really needs it. But let's think about the relationship between these two cases. The relationship between the owner and this guy. In the first case, there's no chance that this guy will want any relationship to have with this person. The second chance, the second situation, they might be best friends for life. Now, if you look on it in a very simple way, this guy smacked it into his face and this guy put it in front of him very nicely. But that's not the only reason. If we think about it and we look into ourselves, we could see that there's a very important reason. And it goes like this. If you take a cup and you bring it to someone's face like this, you know what happens to him? He does this. It's like some kind of an instinct that if you push a cup to someone's face, his head is going to move back. Why? Because we human beings, I believe, and this is the way that I think that my father would always work according to this. The number one thing about ourselves is do not feed me. Do not feed me. I say the worst game that my kids could play with me is they say, Daddy, close your eyes and open your mouth. It's like, oh no. I mean, also, if I'm sure that there's only candies around in 3 miles, it's like, leave me alone. The worst thing for a person to feel is that someone is feeding him. The best thing for a person to feel is that he took it by himself. And that's the main difference between these two scenarios. The first guy, he was fed. He was fed. That's life. He needed to drink. He drank. You say thank you. You paid him for it, and he's gone. But he's gone forever. The second guy, he felt like a king because he was the one that drank. No one didn't feed him. Yes, he was needed. Yes, he was in a situation. That's life. But he felt like a king. And that's why the relationship for life is going to stay. And I feel that this is what my father answered as rabbi. He said, look, people want meaning, people want to understand life, people want to understand what the heck they're doing in this world. Favorite word of my father, what the heck they're doing in this world. We all want it. Nobody doesn't want to live life without understanding what we're doing. No one doesn't want to turn around after 20 years and say, what did I just do? We feel it, it's part of us. We want meaning, we want understanding. The question is, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to take Judaism, are we going to take wisdom and smack it into people's faces? Are we going to give them opportunities? That's a major, major difference. My father tells his rabbi, my job is to give people opportunities. I'm going to make an effort to understand. I'm going to make an effort to really get to the depths of it and to share it with other people. If I share it with other people, and they love it and they take it, it's their life. They're going to enjoy it very much. It's not about me, it's about them. And that's why his rabbi gave him his blessings. Because his rabbi was very worried. He says, Noach, how are you going to do it? It's not a machine that you could just stick it into people's mind. The answer is, I'm not going to stick it into people's mind. It's really not going to work in such a way. Our job is to stop and offer people wisdom. And you know what? Also ourselves. We need to do it to ourselves too. We need to stop and think about what we know. To stop and think about what do we want of our lives. To stop and understand that there is such a great opportunity of enjoying our lives. God gave us this wisdom not because he needs anything from us. It's because he's offering us a great, great opportunity. Now, if we're going to take it even for ourselves, the same thing about others, but even for ourselves, if we're going to take it and smack it into our face, and we're going to say, okay, God wants me to learn, so I'm going to learn. Or God wants me to do it, so I'm going to do it. Then we're losing the opportunity. We might do it because we have to do it, but we just disconnected. This is my father's approach for life. Wisdom is so beautiful. Dig into it. Try it out. And I have to tell you, people think that my father was, this genius guy, this person that knew to teach so beautiful, etc., etc. He was, but he didn't start like that. He started with wanting to understand. He started with wanting to share with people. He started with his own realization. God gave us the Torah, God gave us the instructions, not for himself. He gave it for us to grow. What am I learning from it? Do I really enjoy it? Do I really, really see how pleasant it is? How blessing is it? I want to understand it because I want to share it with other people. And that's why he got this blessing, that he had this tremendous, tremendous way of understanding. Because if you want to understand it for yourself, then you get a nice present. If you want to understand it to share with people, you're going to get a very big present, and it's called wisdom. The most important thing about our forefathers was this: taking the responsibility, taking the opportunities to share with people wisdom, taking the opportunities to give people to understand that God is so beautiful. And it's not for God, it's for ourselves. Avraham Avinu, our first father, Abraham, what did he do? Did he tell people, come and bless God? No. He said, come have a drink, have a eat. Is it good? Do you enjoy it? Let's think who gave it to us. Why did he give it to us? Because he loves us? Let's say thank you. Let's get to know him. This is the way that my father would connect himself to Judaism, and this is how we would share with people. So from one hand, a lot of responsibility. We have a job. We have a job. You would say, when you come home and the house is a mess, you turn to the older children, to the children that has a piece of brain, and you say, what's going on here? It is a responsibility. When you have more wisdom, you are more responsible. But that's the benefit of it. It's not the downside of it. We have wisdom. We need to share wisdom. We need to teach wisdom. We have to make the effort to understand it. This combination of making an effort, caring for others, and wanting to understand, that's what made my father so great. And I feel that this is what you're going to enjoy in this series of classes. You are going to enjoy yourself. You're going to understand yourself. You're going to understand that God is there to give you blessings. And you just have to open your hands and say, I'm ready. Ask not what you could do for God, because God doesn't need nothing from you. Ask yourself how much you allow yourself to receive from God, because He has so much to give you. It's just going to be if you open your heart, you open your mind, you open your hands, and you say, I want to understand. I'm making an effort to understand. And you can see how much blessing. It's unbelievable, the accomplishments of my father's in his life. And it's not stopping. It's not stopping. So many people are affected by him and continue to be affected. People call me up and they say, I'm a student of your father. I never met him. I never spoke to him. I went through his wisdom. My father himself, I could tell you personally, my father would be shocked of the level of the accomplishments that he had in his life. It was like I say, you take a stone and you throw it, approximately where it's going to fall. But if you take a stone and you throw it and it flies very, very far, you say something just happened here. And the key to it is that my father always would pray for this. And he would say, God, you have the wisdom. You care about this much more than me. I just need to want it enough. Please help me want it enough. Please help me care for it enough. And then you will give me the gift of learning, understanding, and sharing. I hope you enjoyed this series. I hope you enjoy yourself.